Stop making your D&D characters nonchalant. Alright, another Dungeons & Dragons video for today because I totally have something important and pressing that I need to share in the moment and totally just don't want to do session prep. Character creation is one of the most important aspects of the Dungeons & Dragons experience. It's long, it's arduous, it's unavoidable, regardless of if you want to have a game that is narratively rich or tactically challenging. Character creation determines who you are, what you can do, and where you invest your time will fundamentally shape how your campaign is going to turn out. And as such, there's become a list or popularized trope of patterns that are often discouraged if you're going to participate in a D&D party and a D&D campaign. Stuff like claiming to be a fallen demigod at level 1, or playing an evil character in a party that mainly wants to do good. For these unadvised tropes, though, I think the poster boy is most often the lone wolf character. And there's a variety of reasons why this archetype is extremely difficult to play and often extremely annoying to have in your own party. Very few people are actually interested in being in a party where someone is actively standoffish, uncollaborative, and uninterested in participating in a group. The whole reason why you play Dungeons & Dragons with a group of people. It often reeks of main character syndrome. It is very demanding on the party. It's constantly going, look at me being alone. I'm alone and lonely. Don't participate in my loneliness. Simply look at me being alone and cool. And just to be clear, like everything in Dungeons & Dragons, if everybody talks about it and works it out, you can do anything. So you can pull off a lone wolf insanely well. If the party is set up so that this lone wolf is meant to be received as antagonistic, if a rivalry forms, if it's all about the lone wolf slowly learning to let down their guard and trust people, you can get a satisfying story out of that. Again, it requires the communication and collaboration of the group, but the actual trope isn't necessarily the problem, it's just misplaying it. But the funny thing about this trope is, and really the main reason for this video, is that I think the lone wolf trope has been talked about so much, it has been so criticized, it has become almost hyperbolic in terms of what people come to expect from it. And it's led to some situations where people aren't willing to look at sort of the adjacent behaviors that are not quite the lone wolf trope, but are still very lone wolf-esque. To me, honestly, one of those behaviors is trying to make your character appear nonchalant or unbothered. What makes the lone wolf incredibly frustrating is this antisocial style of play, this refusal to engage with anything beyond their own character. I don't know you, I don't trust you, I'm not gonna tell you my backstory, I'm not gonna even tell you my name, I don't care who you are, I'm on my own journey. Right, this collaborative game that everybody's supposed to be playing in is ground to a halt, because someone doesn't want to engage with the other content that everyone else has supplied for this story. Nonchalance can have kind of a similar effect, but instead of it being an outright refusal to engage with anything supplied by the other players, it can be a refusal to react meaningfully to anything else supplied by the other players. Because the thing about nonchalance is that it's this unbotheredness, right? It's being unfazed, unaffected, unpassionate about really anything that you come across. And you can understand why players might decide to adopt that attitude for their characters. They want them to appear wise, learned, worldly, unbothered, calm, effortlessly cool. If you've given your character a harsher background, if they faced struggles before they joined the party, you want that to reflect in how they react to these new situations. It makes sense. But the thing is, most people want to be cool in Dungeons & Dragons, and if they don't want to be cool, they at least want to be unique. So when your uniqueness, your flair, your reveal is met with the attitude of, okay, cool, it's different, but it's almost the same as I don't care, because it's still, on some level, the same refusal to be impacted by someone else's content at the table. And to put it in drama terms, right, a lot of people are familiar with the concept of yes and. The idea that whenever you are coming up with stuff on the fly, you should always be saying yes and then adding something onto it. That way there's no contradictions, that way there's no need to backpedal, that way everyone is contributing to the project. The lone wolf feels like it is just flat out saying no. I don't care, not my problem, I'm gonna do this. Nonchalance is kind of like saying yes, but there's no and. Yeah, that happened, but I'm unbothered by it. Yeah, that happened, but I'm wise and experienced and worldly, so I've seen this stuff before. Yeah, that happened, but I'm cool with it. And I've already talked about it on TikTok, but I think one of the best examples of how trying to have your character be constantly nonchalant can take the wind out of the sails of other players is seen in the beginnings of Critical Role Campaign 3, specifically when it comes to the character of Laudna. Laudna's whole thing is that she is a spooky, undead witch girl. Her whole vibe, the whole buy-in of her character is meant to be seen as creepy and weird and gross. That is a vital part of her character. Marisha in the beginning episodes is constantly drawing attention to the fact that Laudna is decaying. She is falling apart. She doesn't quite understand how to interact with the living anymore. She's weird. And the point is obviously to get a reaction from her party members, to be, recognized for the unique aspects of her characters, and to a lesser extent sort of be respected for the choices that she's made. But in the early episodes of Campaign 3, that doesn't happen all that often because this is a very nonchalant party. A lot of the players have stuff in their backstory that kind of causes them to react to Laudna's very obvious creepiness with honestly a little bit of disregard. They're either weird in their own way, like Fern being from the Feywild, Chetney being a werewolf, Imogen being ostracized and kind of a cursed child from her hometown, or they act like they're used to weirdness, like Orem uncovering this magical mystery, Ashton being this punk outsider with weird friends, FCG being a literal therapy droid. And you know what they say about that?
And when everyone's super, no one will be.
Like, they all acknowledge the state that Laudna is in, but none of them really play ball with the fact that the point is to react. If you're the only one drawing attention to the fact that your character is creepy, if you're the only one drawing attention to the fact that your character is weird or mysterious, it doesn't really feel authentic because it's only coming from you. It's not being reciprocated by the world around you or the people that you are traveling with the most. And that's the thing, nonchalance can kind of stall a character because it doesn't allow the player to portray their character as they want to. If Laudna's starting point in her journey is to be this hollowed out, now living corpse that is slowly making its way in the world of the living, and slowly as they interact with the world, they start to find new friends and newfound family, they start to rediscover what it means to be alive once more, you have to have that initial point of unnaturalness, of not belonging, of not fitting in, of being weird. But if the only thing you're met with is nonchalance, that's not quite as fun, because you're trying to express your character, and they're trying to show you that they're not bothered by it. So what am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to react to these kinds of characters? Am I supposed to gawk and awe and go, oh my gosh, you're so special and cool every time? No, it's much more simple than that. You just have to look at Robbie Daymond and Dorian Storm. And this is kind of the important part, because Dorian's interactions with Laudna, I think, perfectly illustrate how little it takes for a character to interact with someone else's character in a way that they would appreciate it. Dorian is not, aggressive or hateful towards Laudna. He doesn't decry her as this, monstrous thing, this evil undead. He's polite, he's cordial, he's supportive, he's a friend. But any time Laudna would do something that was meant to be seen as creepy, gross, or weird, he would react to it like it was creepy, gross, and weird. Getting creeped out that she crawls like a spider, pointing out that it's gross that there's black ooze leaking out of her sometimes. Trying very hard to politely inform her that body parts might have fallen off during their activities. All of these interactions, even though they are small, get to the point that Laudna is a creepy undead witch girl that people have to see, and the creepy undead witch parts are unavoidable. And the interactions are born of the fact that Dorian is not a nonchalant character. Dorian is an incredibly chalant character, and this is partially aided by his background as a noble who is raised to be polite and proper, so he's trying to uphold those values with his interactions with her. But the main thing is, Dorian reacts to Laudna's character first, and then adds his own character as the reaction. Robbie sees a creepy thing happen and goes, okay, how would my character react to a creepy thing? Making sure to acknowledge that it is creepy, rather than going, okay, my character is nonchalant, so how am I going to react to this nonchalantly? And again, just like with the lone wolf trope, nonchalance isn't something that should never appear in your games at all. Obviously, if people talk things out, if they make their intentions and wants known, then you can easily craft the situations where characters can behave nonchalantly and not be bothered by stuff, and everyone walks away happily. But the point is that still requires that you take into account how other people want their characters to be received and reacted to. Nonchalance is enticing because it gives characters a little bit of a sense of power. So much of the game is determined by the DM and the dice and chance. Players are constantly reacting to new stuff, new information, new characters, new enemies, new NPC, and a lot of the times the expectation is to shock, wow, and surprise the party. So being nonchalant, being calm in the face of all of this can feel like, yeah, I'm steering this ship. The consequence of this, though, is that I feel that nonchalance comes at the cost of meaningful or fun or varied reaction. If a character is unbothered by most things, then very few things can be exciting, creepy, weird, new. And hopefully, as I've pointed out, acting unbothered by anything at the table can take energy away from areas that people are excited about and willing to explore. It doesn't actually take a lot of time and attention to put the effort in to meet someone where they want to be met. Because at the end of the day, people want people to care about most things at Dungeons & Dragons. And caring asks that we do a little bit more than just see that something happens. It requires that we participate and be curious in what is happening. That's the video. I have a session to plan for. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and let me know if there's anything else you think I missed.